All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of Dids in the Dugout. Once again, we will not be talking about baseball on this baseball show. It'll be a football centric show, considering that's what season we're in. Super excited about today. Got another really good buddy of mine, Chad Flowers, coming on with us. Y'all will hear from Hitch later on in the week, but got with Chad and he was wanting to come on and talk with us a little bit. So we're having a little impromptu show here with my buddy Chad Flowers. How you doing, Chad?
Doing good, man. I'm a little disappointed. When I see the title dugout, I'm
Hmm.
thinking, okay, I can talk baseball, I can talk fantasy baseball, considering one of my
Yeah.
star players has just been busted for potentially potentially
Hmm.
being with an underage person. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we can talk a little football since it's that time of year again. I'm pretty excited to do it.
Yeah. He definitely needed to have a phone conversation with their man Frank Reynolds. He could have got that straightened out real quick, right? So we need to push Wander in that direction. Maybe get that hammered out and see if
Yeah,
maybe we can be an asset for you here next year, maybe year after, something like that. So, but yeah,
yeah.
it's going to be a football show this time. I'm actually going to hit you with a little baseball at the end of it. I didn't tell you
Okay.
about that, so it's
All
going to be
right.
you shooting from the hip on that when we get to that point towards the end of the show. So.
Sounds like a
But
plan.
for the ones that don't know Chad, he's a Ole Miss alumni, a longtime Ole Miss fan, just like us. Me and Chad's been friends, just like me and Hitch for years and years and years, and
Yep.
we basically spend all year talking about all kinds of Ole Miss sports, football, basketball, and baseball. So
Yeah.
he's well versed in what's going on in Oxford and what this team looks like. So I wanted to bring him on and kind of get his thoughts on this year. So, Chad, what are your thoughts about the 2023 Ole Miss Rebel football team?
It's hard not to have a bad taste in your mouth still from how last season ended, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Considering everything that happened with Auburn and, of course, just the way that the team played,
Yeah.
I'm probably entering the season with lesser expectations, or I'm a little bit more reserved,
Mhm.
because especially when you look at the schedule compared to last year, I do think we're more talented. I think we're more talented this
Okay.
season than we were last year, but the schedule is not not good.
Favorable.
Uh, no, you play, at least from the preseason perspective, three top five teams, two of which on the road in very difficult places to play. You're not going to get real excited about that, right? Um, but the good thing I think about this season is we're going to know more about the team early on, right? Last season, it was we have 7 games against, lesser opponents at the end of the day. That's what it was. And we played okay in some spots, but we still didn't really know what we had. And then we finally figured out what we had, and it was not real good. But fourth game of the season, we're going to Tuscaloosa, right? We're going to know
Yeah.
pretty soon if this team is going to, get to 9, 10 wins, maybe, right? I think that may
Mhm.
be the ceiling if it was me. But who knows, right? There's a lot of unknown, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of transfers, and that's exactly what Lane Kiffin's playbook is. And we've got a lot of new faces in a lot of key positions.
There's no doubt about that, and in particular the schedule, like you're talking about. We kind of run through the first, what was it, 6, 7 games last year,
Seven
something
games,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, seven, start 7-0. The Kentucky game was that really big game there.
Yep.
Just if you want to call it start the year, but I think it was still the sixth or seventh game, one of the two,
Yeah.
right before we played Alabama there. And we kind of get that in like week 2 this year, right? Like that at Tulane game is kind of like the Kentucky
Yeah.
game at home last year, right? I mean, they're a pretty good team. Went to the Sugar Bowl last year. I know they're not the same team as they were last year, but that'll be kind of a good test there. And then you get Georgia Tech, and then like you said, you go on the road to play Alabama. Then you get LSU at home. I mean, you find out in the first month and a half what this team's going to be made of, and you come out of those 6 games and you're quite frankly, if you're 4-2, you're probably still kind of happy with where you're at that point if you have
Mhm.
that
Absolutely.
kind of start, right? Even though it may not look like it coming off losses like that, but that's why they play the games. One thing Lane has done is played Alabama fairly well.
Sure.
When he decides not to, tell them to go get their popcorn ready and stuff like that, and that fuel to
Yeah.
the fire. That one didn't go particularly well that day. But played them really good last year. I know that was at home. That's not going to be the case this year. So schedule's definitely a lot harder going to Athens, like you mentioned
Mhm.
too, later on in the year. Even if you get on a a pretty good roll there and start stacking up W's, you're still looking down the line, and you got to make
Yeah.
the trip to Georgia, and that's one that can really take the air out of the sails too. So super tough schedule this year.
Yeah, and and then right after that, you've got Arkansas, who we never
Yeah.
play. We never blow them out, right? They're coming to Oxford this year, but that's always a tough game.
Hmm.
Auburn, I have no idea what to expect with Auburn. With them, it's kind of the opposite, right? You think they're going to be good, and they suck, and then you think, okay, we can probably beat them, and they rattle off 10 wins, and now they have Hugh Freeze. And
That's
for
that.
whatever you want to say about Hugh Freeze, he can win football games. He's done it at
Yeah.
Ole Miss. He did it at Liberty. So I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
expect them to be down.
And especially early in his tenure too. You look, that's probably
Yep.
the two best coaching jobs he did at Ole Miss was his first 2 years there. That
Absolutely.
first one in particular, because there's weren't a whole lot of SEC caliber players on that team when he first got there. And yeah, I mean he's a great motivator. He's a great offensive mind. He always finds a way to win games he's not supposed to. And I fully expect Auburn to get a couple of those this year, even if they only win 5, 6, something like that games, but they're going to jump up and they're going to bite somebody they're not supposed to in this league.
So let me ask you this. So are you more concerned, or what are your outlooks on both sides of the ball, right? Are you more concerned with the offense, considering, the faces that we have to
Yeah,
replace, or are you more concerned with the defense just because we haven't had a good defense really since, we had maybe a few games with Durkin in
yeah,
2001, but we haven't had a good defense in
yeah, and
7 years.
that defense with Dirk, and that wasn't even particularly a really good defense. That was a
Competent.
defense.
They were
Yeah,
competent.
but they were the ultimate bend and don't break,
Yes.
right? Like we
Yes.
forced so many field goals when we would give up 60 yards on the drive, and then we would tighten up, make them
Hmm.
kick, which is really what we needed to do anyway, right? Like if
Sure.
you can do that as a defense with the Lane Kiffin led offense, you're probably going to win a lot of games.
Hmm.
Mine is obviously defense. If I'm not mistaken, we brought in 16 transfers on that side of the ball alone.
That sounds
Uh,
right.
yeah, but obviously we're excited about Pete Golding. He's a guy that is an incredible talent evaluator. He knows what he wants to do, but he's also the guy that can mold his defense to the players that he has. Like that's
Sure.
one thing that he constantly talks about is they're not going to run a certain system just because that's what he's always done. He's going to look at the talent and the players that he has, and he's going to run the best defense possible for them to succeed. Which is obviously nice to hear. Now you give him 2, 3 years, something like that, to get his guys in there to recruit to a certain system. Maybe he can go to more of a system defense then. But yeah, I think it's obviously defense for me, right? I think we're in pretty good shape on the defensive line. We seem to be
Hmm.
deeper there than we have been in a while, and to me, that's obviously the most important part of a defense. You need to
For
control the
sure.
line of
Absolutely.
scrimmage. You got to cut down the run game, and then when they drop back, you got to be able to get pressure on them, and that in turn helps your secondary out in the passing game then. And you got to eat up blockers to free up the linebackers so they can get in there and they can make plays and stuff holes and go sideline to sideline, which is one thing I think we will be able to do this year with the type athletes we have with Suntarine Perkins and
Yeah.
Montgomery, the kid from Louisville. I mean, I've just heard rave reviews over and over and over again about him so far in this fall camp. And then, you get Cedric Johnson back, guy that's been in Oxford for a long, long
Right.
time. So, I'm real excited about him. He's probably our best edge rusher. But then you get guys like Pegues on the defensive line, another guy I'm super excited about just because of how big and athletic he is. He can do
Right.
so many things down there. If you need to play defensive tackle, obviously you can get down there because he's big enough to take up some blockers and free up linebackers that way. Or if you wanted to push him out a little further and let him use his athleticism to work the edge a little bit and give you a bigger body out there. He's fast enough to be able to get out there and do that too. So, yeah, defense I think is really exciting. I'm super interested in how we're going to use all 90 defensive backs that we've added to this roster this year.
Yeah.
It seems like every single day you look up and we've added another defensive back. So that
It's
that
pretty
tells
much
you.
it's pretty much a completely different secondary than we had last year,
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. You get Prince back, which is obviously really big. Tennyson is back.
Hmm.
That's a big one for us too. I really liked his game, and I think he'll really shine in this defense with Golding because listed as a DB, but he plays so much more like a linebacker. He's so aggressive. He's attack, 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 and I know that's something Golding's probably going to like if I had to guess. So, yeah, we're really interested to see how they're going to work the defensive backs there. Like I said, the D line's one I'm really excited about. It's probably the deepest we've been in a long time there, and we got some linebackers there. Really excited about to see Suntarine Perkins with his
Yeah.
athleticism and speed. I mean, he just seems to be tearing it up right now too.
Yeah, I think he's probably the most, the prospect that we've been looking forward to the most on defense since Robert Kimdichie, right? I mean,
Him or Tony Connor. Always go back to Tony
yeah,
Connor.
yeah,
But but that's the same recruiting class though. Same
right,
thing.
exactly. That's how
Yeah.
that tells you that most of the big players that we get in have been on the offensive side of the ball, especially when
Yeah.
you have offensive minded coaches. But now, and it probably helps that we got Pete Golding in at DC, right? So yeah, I'm excited. Now, obviously, I don't want to put too many eggs in the basket of a freshman on defense in the SEC, but it's hard not to be excited. Considering the offers that he had and where he could have gone, and he decided to come to Oxford, yeah, I'm expecting big things from him.
Yeah, and just kind of going back to Golding and Suntarine here for a second. I don't know if you saw Golding's press conference last weekend after the scrimmage on Saturday. They asked him about Perkins, obviously, and of course Golding recruited him to Alabama because everybody in the entire dang country was wanting Suntarine Perkins to come play for him. Golding said he had him rated as the number one linebacker in the entire country. He was number one on their board over everybody. I mean, he loves the way he plays.
That's good.
That's a statement. And he was talking about how obviously he didn't know when Suntarine signed that that Golding would be coming to Ole Miss, right? But he also told him during the process, apparently he knew there was a chance that he would be moving, and so he told Perkins, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to be here if you come, and I'm not going to tell you where to go, so I'll be there either, So it seemed like he actually really did have the best interest in the kid in mind. So that's something that's really nice to see too, especially in today's age of college football. You don't see just a whole lot of that anymore. It's always looking out for me, and it sounded like he actually had the best interest or best interest for Perkin in mind while he was recruiting him. So really excited to see him though. Defense I think is going to be improved. Super excited to see it. All the multiple formations too. It's another thing that Golding talked about. They're obviously going to have a base, but they're going to swap it up and do whatever they need to do to get the right guys in position to make plays. So that'll be really interesting to see. So I'm super excited about that. Now
it'll be nice to see. Sorry to cut you off, but it'll be nice to see more than 3 players on the line on defense, right?
Yeah, that's right. And even if you do have 3 on the line, you're probably going to have 2 coming up from either linebacker, secondary, something like that to at least give the thought of pressure coming one way or another. So he's not going to leave his guys out on an island up there against 5 guys and expect them to get the job done. I don't think that's going to be the case with Pete this year. So now talking about this defense, we're talking about how they need to be improved. That's one thing we're really excited about, obviously. They do need to improve, but they need to keep the other team under 80 because this offense might score 85 a game. I think they are going to be incredible on that side of the ball. Anybody that's listened to me leading up to football season knows how excited I am about Jackson Dart. I think he's going to have a huge year. Always compare it to Matt Corral's first year with Kiffin to his second year, right? And how he just exploded. And just from reports coming out of camp, reporters going to practice, stuff like that, it seems like Dart has really taken over that leadership role on this team. Seems like the players believe in him, and that's who they want as their quarterback. And that's just as important as being really good at playing the position, as having all the trust of your teammates and them believing that you're the leader of not only that unit but the entire team, right? So we get him back. I think he's going to be the start quarterback. Obviously, we'll get Quinshawn back. A really deep room there at running back with him and Riscano, and bring in Jam Griffin, and you got Bentley coming back too. New faces at receiver. I think we have an experienced, really good offensive line, at least for the starting 5. I'm sure we've got a little bit of depth in behind them in case something happens. But And I think that's the big thing. You got to have depth in this league. People are going to get hurt, right? So
Mhm.
just what's your overall view? Start with the quarterback position. Are you of the same thought of me? Do you think it's Jackson Dart's job to lose going into the
For
season?
sure, right? I mean, he was here last year, and
Mhm,
so he has the advantage of being in the system longer, right?
mhm,
I think that he showed a lot of good. He showed some bad, but you expect that with the guy of his youth, right? So I'm not worried about the quarterback position because if Jackson Dart doesn't get it done, we've got three other capable guys behind him
Yeah, yeah,
that can
that's good.
step in, right? So where
Mhm,
I'm concerned, right? Let's kind of break down the offense. Offensive
right.
line, we replaced 4 out of 5 starters. Now they had some moments where, oh God, okay, we're breaking more than we're bending on the offensive
Yeah.
line.
Mhm.
But it's good to have that continuity. I'm
Yeah,
not worried
that's right.
about the running back
They're
room.
back, right?
Yeah, they're
No,
back.
no, 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 no,
Not worried
no.
about the running back. Wide receiver, I'm not going to be say I'm worried because of the talent that we have, but wide receiver was a disappointing position last year,
Mhm.
right? We
Yeah, it
didn't
was.
have that. Mingo was good at times,
Mhm.
right? Malik Heath was good at times, but they would disappear when we really needed them, right? And you didn't have
Yeah.
that guy to step up.
Yeah, I mean, really, you look back to last year, maybe our most consistent wide receiver all year last year is actually back this year with Dayton Wade. It's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a guy that you didn't really even
Right.
think about last year going into the year, really as the year progressed. But you go back and you watch some games and you think about that's one guy you constantly heard about over and over and over again making a play was Dayton Wade, and he's
Mhm.
back this year, so that'll definitely help. But yeah, you get Trey Harrison, Franklin in from the transfer portal, two
Yep.
really really talented guys. Now they've got to make uh, that jump from the G5 to the Power Five, right?
Right.
And
That's right.
obviously competition's a lot different. So yeah, I'm with you there.
And the other
Wide
question is
receivers
Aiden
definitely.
Williams, right? We
Yeah,
talk about the talented freshman. Is he the
yeah.
next great Ole Miss wide receiver that some think he's going to be? Now, you can't expect too much from a freshman. I was looking at Laquan and AJ Brown's numbers their freshman year. 400, 600 yards. That's all they did. And then they
Mhm,
did 1,000 yards, for AJ the following year. And Laquan got hurt in his second year, so he was on his way for it. So
mhm.
you can't expect too much. So yeah, Trey Harris, Zachary Franklin. I think they're going to have to be the guys now. The other thing is Prescorn, right? Tight end from Memphis.
Yeah,
How much is he going to be involved? Because we don't know what we're going to get from Trig.
yeah. Really excited about pre-scoring. I think that's going to be one of the bigger offensive portal pickups this season just because of the need, kind of like you said with Trig there, because if something happens to Trig, kind of he kind of had a little scuffle back in fall camp
Hmm.
or whatever, got in the doghouse a little bit. Uh, but with Caleb Prescorn, I think you know what you're getting, right? You're going to get
Yeah.
a guy that's going to come in, have quite frankly a professional mindset. Like he knows why he's there, right?
Hmm.
He's there to play one more season of college football, soak
Yep.
up all the knowledge he can, have as good of a year as possible in the best conference as possible against the best teams in the entire country, and then go on to the NFL draft. So this is kind of a business year with him. And everything I've read about him, it's a business year for him. He knows what
Hmm.
he's got to do. He's going to go in there. He's going to handle his business, and the coach seem to be really really excited about him too. And then you get Kyrie. Is it Kyrie Hill? I think's his name. The freshman tight end from last year. He's a sophomore
Sounds
this
right.
year. Yeah, a guy they were really excited about coming out of high school. He needed to put on some weight, but he's apparently a really, really good pass catcher. He played a good bit last year for us, just out of necessity. We had to have a body there. He wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm worried about, and you can say this for both offense and defense. I was looking at some numbers, and while yes, the Ole Miss offense was great on paper, they put
Mm,
up 500 yards per game, right?
yeah,
That looks great, but they only put up 34 yards per game. I mean points per game, and the
uh,
biggest problem that I
34
saw,
yards would be a problem.
yeah, that would be a huge problem. That's
Yeah.
that would not be good. But the biggest problem was red zone offense.
Mm,
12th in the SEC.
Bill was
In
old as time.
Yep, tail as old as time. The last 2 years we've been at the cellar of the SEC in red zone offense, red
Yeah.
zone defense as well. Which that is not as surprising considering how much we've struggled on defense.
Mhm,
But we did not eclipse 80% scoring
mm,
from the red zone last year, and that's abysmal considering how good the offense is supposed to be.
yeah.
That's what I'm worried about, right? Because that's something we haven't consistently seen since Lane Kiffin has been here. And are we going to solve that problem? Because with the defense that's going to be inexperienced and, they haven't been playing together for a while, you have to rely on the offense. And if you can't put up 7, you're going to lose games because of the offenses we're going to play in this conference.
Yeah, and I think some of that goes back to Lane Kiffin and how much he goes for it too. You know how many field goals we've passed up on, even in the red zone. Lord, he's going for it on our own 15-yard line at some points if he thinks he can get it. So, some of those numbers are probably skewed a little bit by that, but yeah, 100% when we've never had any trouble between the 20s, right?
Nope, never.
Between the 20s, we can get whatever we want to. It's when we get inside the 20, the field condenses down. You're a little more packed in there that we've had some more trouble with. And it's kind of surprising when you have a running back as good as Judkins because, you should be able to just turn around, just hand it off to him, right?
Yeah.
And then, we kind of touched on the offensive line a second ago, but the experience there, I would think we would try to lean a lot more on the run game down in the red zone this year because you've got the big offensive line, the experienced offensive line, and then, in my opinion, the best running back in the entire country in Judkins. And, do what you want to between the 20s. When we get down there and, it's time to cash it in. Let's turn around, give it to number 4 right there, and start putting points on the board. So, yeah, that's a great point you bring up about the lack of red zone efficiency there last year and through the last couple years.
Yeah, it's been a problem, and like I said, I think that's the key on both sides of the ball for the upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we get started here in a couple weeks though with the powerhouse Mercer Bears. Is that right? Mercer Bears.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah.
Macon, Georgia.
And we get them at a good time. They actually play week 0, so they should be pretty good and wore out before they get to Oxford next week.
If that is a factor, we're in trouble. If that is a factor that they are tired after their first game against Mercer, then I don't really need to focus on the rest. I'm not focused on the rest of the season. But I think you're right about you mentioned the Tulane game. That's going to be an interesting game, right? I would think Ole Miss maybe gets favored 10.5. But Tulane, say again.
I said I would hammer Ole Miss.
I mean, yeah, I would think so. I think that would be the bet. But the problem is that's going to be a Super Bowl type atmosphere for Tulane because they don't play Superdome anymore. They have an on-campus stadium. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be rocking.
And only gave Ole Miss 3,000 tickets.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting atmosphere.
And of course, those are sold out. So it's going to be filled with a bunch of Green Wave fans. So, but look, that's you got to go on the road to Tuscaloosa and Athens this year, so you better handle your business at Tulane, or it's going to be a long, long year because it's going to be a lot different when you get to Alabama and Georgia than it is down there in New Orleans.
Yeah. I'm glad Alabama has to play Texas before us. I mean, now there's a week in between, but I think that at minimum you may be able to see some stuff on tape that they're doing that we may not have to show considering our opponents. So that may be an advantage, but once again, it's still Tuscaloosa, it's still Alabama, and it's never going to give me warm and fuzzy feelings knowing that we have to go there. No, I am glad that we don't have to go there next. I'm glad we don't have to play them next year, though. I'll say that. I'll admit it. I'm glad we don't have to play them next year.
Yeah. The only thing I'm really disappointed about next year is they did away with the fiercest rivalry in the SEC with Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. That just isn't right.
Hey, we'll never forget it, and next time we play them, we'll be out for blood. Right? They are our
that's right.
They are our tribal.
That's right. Yeah. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the AP poll. Me and Hitch talked about the coaches and the Locked On preseason top 25 poll in our latest episode. Since then, the preseason AP polls come out. Not a whole lot of surprises here. You got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and then LSU creeps into the top 5, like you alluded to earlier in the show today. LSU is one of those teams that everybody is obviously really excited about, and for good reason. Brian Kelly has put together a heck of a squad down there. Harold Perkins, for my money, might be the best player in the entire country. I love watching him play. He's absolutely incredible. But one thing that me and Hitch have even touched on already is that week 1 matchup with LSU and Florida State. These are two teams that are garnering a lot of buzz leading into this year. Some potential playoff implications in that game. Florida State coming in at number 8 here. They're going to be playing in Orlando. I don't know how much you've kept up with the nationwide landscape of college
Mhm.
football. We haven't really talked a whole lot about that. But that's one game that really catches my eye. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts a little bit on college football. We've started having these really big matchups in week 1 to kind of set the stage, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh, I think it's really good for the game to get these big out of conference
it
games
is.
early in the year, and instead of having Ole Miss Mercer, for example,
Right.
that's being a prime example.
They need to
Uh,
get rid of the neutral site. I hate that. I wish it was more
mhm,
college campuses, right? Because you're asking fans to travel
yeah,
for, for another game that's
give
being
me home
held
and
at a
homes.
yeah, give me home and homes, right? If, if,
Yeah,
if we're going to do it, let's do it the right way, right?
yeah, and another thing about those neutral site games is it's taken a home game away
Yeah,
from the fans
yeah,
too.
yeah.
You usually it's usually a 2-year deal, but uh, and you swap which one loses one of their home games that year. And with everything you're asking fans to pay these days with college football, you're I guarantee you. Well, if I say I guarantee you, I know because I used to do it every single year. The
Mhm.
season ticket price doesn't go down when you lose one game.
It
So
does not.
you're essentially paying more per game when something like that happens. So I'm with you. I wish they would do home and homes there, but I do want them to keep up this trend of having these big top 10 matchups to start the years. I think they're really interesting. They can really tell you a lot. So that was one of them I wanted to point out though. The 5 LSU and 8 Florida State, and that coming up in week 1.
I'll
Texas
talk about
coming in. And,
I'll talk about LSU a little bit. They're
yep.
my pick to come out of the West. I think
Oh, are
they're
they? Okay.
yeah, I think they're going to be better than Alabama. I'm not down on Texas A&M since we're talking about the West. I think that
Hmm.
when we played them last year, that freshman quarterback looked pretty
Was really
good.
good. Yeah,
And
I was
for
actually talking about him today with a buddy up at work, and that's because I see all these quarterback lists in the SEC, and
Mhm.
I hardly ever see Weigman on any of them. And I came away really impressed with him
Yes,
last year.
and
Hell of a
say
coming out party. So happy it happened against Ole Miss.
and say what you want about Bobby Petrino. There's a lot of bad you can say about him. The guy can coach offense. Assuming
Incredible.
he is truly getting the reins of
Mhm.
the offense, I can't see how the offense won't be better than what it's shown the last few years. And they're
Yeah.
going to have talent on both sides of the ball. So I
Mhm.
think Texas A&M is a little bit of a sleeper. And like I said, we don't really know what we're getting out of Auburn. Kind of don't know what we're getting out of State,
No.
considering what happened with Mike Leach. They still
Yep.
have Will Rogers, which is always a plus. So there's a lot of unknowns in
Yeah,
the
there
West.
is.
But LSU, I think Brian Kelly is, he's not better than Kirby Smart or Nick Saban, but he's right up there in terms of top
Mhm.
coaches.
Yep.
And they're bringing back a quarterback, which I think is
And a
key,
really good one.
a really, really good one. That's kind of the advantage they have over Alabama in my eyes is
Mhm.
the experience at quarterback. So that's why I like them.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think the East is going to be a disaster. Georgia
Yep.
is going
Outside of
to.
one thing. Mhm.
Yeah, they're going to romp. Now I don't know. They have to replace a quarterback too. Obviously, they have all the talent in the world, but I don't. I can't say for sure that they're going to be the one representing the SEC in the playoff, but I definitely think they'll represent the East.
Yeah, 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 100%. I kind of share that sentiment too, and that was something else I was going to throw at you that I wasn't going to tell you about. I was going to get your SEC West predictions
Okay.
today as well. So you kind of beat me to it a little bit, but there's still several teams that you haven't ranked yet. So we'll be getting
Yeah.
to that here in a
Look,
minute too.
yeah. Okay.
Uh,
We can do that.
just kind of scouring through this AP top 25 real quick though. Texas at number 11. We've already talked about them having to go
Are
through.
they back? All right. Question for you: Is Texas back?
No, they're not back. They're not back until they are absolutely back. Like they've got to show it to me. I'm not jumping on the
Okay.
bandwagon. Now, what I would not be surprised if they were back though, because I
I think this
love
year they're
Quinn
back.
Ewers. I love Quinn Ewers, man. I think he is an absolute dude. Uh, if he doesn't get hurt last year, they end up beating Alabama. They
Mhm.
didn't have any sort of answer for him whatsoever. Sark's done a really good job. They've recruited really well. They've got
Yeah.
some dudes. Uh, like I said, I'm not surprised if they're back, but I'm not going to be the one that gets caught holding that one if for some reason they end up falling on their face like they just always seem to do when they have these sort of expectations going into a year. So
I just don't see
yeah,
enough in the Big 12 I mean, Kansas State,
Yeah.
they're up there as well. I love that team, just how they play, right? They are it's just a bare knuckle brawl every time you're playing against Kansas State.
Yeah, it is.
But
They're a lot of fun to watch too. I love watching that kind of football. It's such a change of pace from what we see day in and day out.
yeah. So
So,
I would I'll come out and say it if you're not. I think Texas is back this year. I think that
okay, well,
Sark is going to keep his job. He is going to come into the SEC with some pretty high honors after this season. That's my prediction.
okay, well, we are putting that one on the board, and we will revisit that one later on in the year. And
It'll be done by week 2.
exactly. All right, so we got Tennessee coming in at number 12. Another really interesting team because they're replacing Hendon Hooker. We saw a little bit of Milton a couple of years ago. I wasn't super impressed. Now, obviously, that was 2 years ago. A lot of development can go into quarterbacks there over a 2-year span. So people are really excited about them. I don't know a whole lot about them outside of that, but people seem to think that Tennessee's going to be pretty good again this year. Now, I have heard that they're really set up for next year. That's the year that Tennessee is really excited about with all these young players they have. So that'll be interesting to see. Just see if they kind of tread water this year and really break out next year. Kind of scrolling down, Kansas State at number 16. That's really nice to see because when I went through the Locked On Top 25 last week with Hitch, the link I pulled up had Northwestern at 16, and I had
That's
myself
not right.
Yeah.
Wrong Wildcats.
Yeah. Hitch didn't believe me. I had to turn my computer screen around, so at some point you see my entire computer turn around and just face Hitch, and you got him on both screens because I was trying to prove. He kept saying, he's like, it can't be Northwestern. So I'm sitting here looking at it. It's Northwestern. They won like 2 games last year
They
and
were
fired
awful.
the entire coaching staff. And
I
they're
lost
number
a lot of
16
money
in the
on
country.
them last year.
Oh man, that sucks, dude. I hate to hear that.
I know you do.
Uh,
I'm sure you're a man.
okay, so this is one that I was excited about last week when I was talking about them. I think Wisconsin's a really interesting team. It's going to be a complete 180 from what those fans are used to seeing with Phil Longo running the offense and Luke Fickell, the head coach, are used to them grounding, pounding, and just slogging through games and beating you half to death by the time you're done with 4 quarters with them. I didn't tell you that I would bring up Wisconsin, so if you don't have a lot to add to them, I get it. But just from a philosophy style, though, it's a big difference for them, right?
You can't argue with what Luke Fickell has done at Cincinnati, right? Hell, he's probably the reason that they're going to the Big 12, right?
Yeah,
Or they're in he's the reason they're in the Big 12. I think this is their first year in there. Look, Longo obviously did not have the most successful stint in Oxford, but North Carolina, they were not terrible, right?
Yeah,
he put up some. They had some good offenses in North Carolina. So the question is, it's going to be interesting to see, because when you think of Wisconsin, the type of athletes that they normally have compared to what you're going to see at North Carolina and even Ole Miss. It's going to be interesting to see if they have the same type of skill players that that Phil Longo is at least accustomed to from what I've seen in Division One. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I like Luke Fickell. I think that the Big Ten West is a very winnable conference. I mean, you got Iowa, and if you can score more than 6 points a game, you can beat Iowa. So I think Wisconsin's probably fine where they are. But you're right. I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on what they're bringing back.
No, I don't either. I just think that's one of the teams that I'm really interested in seeing throughout the year. Like that's one team that if I see them on TV, got 6 TVs lined up here, and if I'm struggling to find something on the last one and Wisconsin's on, then I'll be putting them on just to kind of see how they adapt to that style of play because it's going to be so different.
I will say, if you go down to the others receiving votes, I'm interested in South Carolina.
Dude, me too. I think they're going to be pretty dang good.
I do too. I would not be surprised if they finished second in the East.
Yeah.
I like Shane Beamer. I like him a lot.
Oh, love him. Love Shane Beamer. Now their schedule, that's the one that rivals Ole Miss. Like it's actually probably tougher. You get North Carolina and Clemson in your non-con, right? And then having to go through the grind of an SEC schedule on top of that. That's
Who do they
that's
draw
one
from?
thing.
Who do they draw from the West? Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Oh no, you're good. I can tell you that real quick. I want to say it's Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken. I've got it right here. Yeah, got it right
State
here. Yeah,
and
Mississippi State, but it's in Columbia,
okay,
and then
okay,
at
and Texas
Texas
A&M in
A&M.
College Station. Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
that can be
Mhm.
doable. That can be doable.
Yeah, that absolutely can, especially, I mean, because that's later in the year when when they go
Right.
to College Station. If that offense struggles for a couple games, Jimbo gets a little antsy, and then you get heads butting
Yeah, he could be out by
there
then.
internally with them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be surprising. But yeah, I'm right there with you though, man. South Carolina, I think, is definitely a team to watch this year, and it's one of those you're going to find right out of the gate, right? Because they get North Carolina
Yeah.
in week one. They're a team with maybe the second best quarterback in the country. I don't think he might be unseating Caleb Williams this year, but Drake
No.
May's a hell of a player in his own right, though. So
Mhm.
will be a lot of fun to see. And speaking of which, North Carolina's at 21, right under them. Ole Miss at 22, A&M 23, Tulane at 24, and then your beloved Iowa Hawkeyes at number
Yep.
25. I know you're not much for the offense. You want to see people ground and pound and grind things out a
Yes,
little bit.
I love watching a
Yeah,
3-3 slog fest. Yeah,
yeah.
it's nothing better than that.
When you have opposing kickers betting the under of your games, that's certainly an offensive identity. I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah. If they don't even believe in you, yeah, then you know that,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the way things are gonna be.
yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, that thing was at like 31 or 32.
I
That
wouldn't be
total for
surprised.
that
I
game.
think yeah, I
It
think I
hit.
got on one
It
at
hit.
30.5 or 31 or something like that
Yeah,
this year.
it hit. So, all right. Well, that was just kind of a quick rundown of the
Yeah.
AP top 25. Obviously these things don't really matter. We're going to play
Oh,
12
yeah.
games and all that, and it's all going to work out, and people will be properly ranked at that point. So,
Somebody in the top 10 will finish unranked like they
yeah,
always do.
always do. Always. You know
Mhm.
what? That's actually a good exercise. I'm going to go back and see if we can find somebody in the top 10 that finishes unranked. All right, so we got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, USC, Penn State, Florida State, Clemson, Washington. Any of those
Hmm.
stand out?
I'll I guess I'm gonna take the easy way out and say Washington, but
Going at
I
number
would not
10?
yeah, number 10, but I'll tell you, I'll go one step further. I think I'll take Ohio State. I don't know if they're gonna be
Finish
able to replace.
unranked?
No, I'm sorry, not yeah, I should have said I shouldn't have said unranked. That's I meant out of the top 10. So,
Oh, okay.
unranked, I would yeah, I think it'd have to be Washington at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah, just
Yeah,
based on
it's them or Penn State for me, one of the two.
yeah, yeah, I think
I
that's
mean, just
fair. I
because
could
you get
also
that
pick Clemson.
grind with Penn State playing in the Big Ten. I mean, that's a tough conference to be trying to navigate to. So I guess if anybody were to do it, it'd be them or Washington for me. So
Yeah, I
maybe
think that's
next
fair.
time we can think of these things ahead of time and actually get to look into it a little bit more instead of doing it on the fly like that.
Yeah,
So uh,
nobody's gonna care.
yeah. Well, nobody's gonna listen anyway. So um,
I wasn't gonna say that.
yeah. Well, I will. It's my show. I can say what I want to. All right, so SEC West, like I said, I was going this one things I was going to
Yep.
throw on you. Kind of,
Mhm.
how do you see this division playing out? One thing that got me thinking about, I saw a thing about Ole Miss being 25-1 to win the SEC West this year, and I thought, man, those are some pretty good odds for a team
Sure,
like Ole Miss that could be so dynamic
they
offensively.
can be.
That might be something worth a sprinkle. So yeah, tell me how you see the West shaping out, and then I'll follow it up and tell you how I've got it laid out.
Yeah, so like I said, I think LSU is coming out of the West. I'll take Alabama at 2. Then give me A&M at 3, Ole Miss at 4.
Mhm.
I'll say Auburn at 5, Arkansas 6, and then I'll take State at 7. Not, and I think that State's going to be. I think they're going to be competent. I think every team in
Yeah,
the West is going to be competent like they usually are.
yeah.
I just think that's the way it'll shake out. I
I
don't.
think
I just
every
don't know what
team
the.
knows ball.
I don't know what the offensive identity is going to be for Mississippi State, right? So there's just a lot of unknown there, and I don't know what's going to happen. I think the Sam Pittman train is starting to run out of steam a little bit.
Slowing down a little bit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and I think A&M is
Okay.
going to be better. That's the way I look at the West. What about yourself?
All right, I'm still going to put Alabama at number one.
Okay.
I'm not dethroning Nick Saban until he is actually gone and out of this sport. I'm not going to be the one that just buries them. So I'll believe in Alabama until they give me a reason not to. Obviously, super talented though, right? They've one of the
Yeah,
top two,
always.
3 recruiting teams in the entire country. The thing that gets me about Alabama is how Nick Saban keeps smiling in his press conferences.
That's true.
It scares the hell out of me
That is
because
terrifying.
it's like he just knows, and nobody's giving his team any credit. And if you get a motivated Nick Saban, you'd best
You're
watch
done
the hell
for.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put him at 1. So I'll go Alabama, LSU. I'm putting Ole Miss at 3
That's
ahead
fair.
of Texas A&M. I think that there's at 1 and 2, Alabama and LSU, you could go either way with them. I feel the same way about 3 and 4. I think it's Ole Miss and Texas A&M right there, either way. But I think Ole Miss, with this offense, I just think we're going to outscore some folks, and I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid on the defense. I think we'll be improved enough to be able to get a couple of these big games and have a pretty good year. And I'm not going to quite buy into Jimbo Fisher until he actually shows it to me at Texas A&M. So I'll put him at 4. And then I'm going to put Arkansas at 5.
Okay.
KJ Jefferson, Rock Sanders. That's the reasoning, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it might be the best wide receiver running back combo, if not in the SEC, in the entire country. Those are 2
Mhm.
guys that have played a ton of college football, and not only college football, SEC football. So you've got 2 dynamic players who are leaders of your team that I think can just really take over a game. So I'll go with them. Auburn at 6, Mississippi State at 7. Kind of the same reasons. I think Auburn, while not particularly good, is going to jump up and bite a couple folks.
Mhm.
They're going to win at least one game they're not supposed to. And State, I just don't know enough about it. Like
Right.
I said, the offensive identity.
Yep.
There's such a big change there with Mike Leach and Zach Arnett. So, but they again bring back Will Rogers.
They'll bite
one of the
somebody too.
most- Yeah. I mean, they're a team that can get you on any given Saturday too. Will Rogers is probably the most experienced
Mhm.
quarterback returning, hell, maybe in the entire country too. I mean, he's played a ton of college football. He knows
sure.
this league. He knows this division. Uh, so it's even though they're ranked last, I don't think they're going to be just bad. I
No,
don't think
no.
there's a
No.
dog team in this entire division. Quite frankly, it may be top to bottom the best it's ever been this year.
Mhm.
It's going to be a lot of fun when we get into conference play. There's not going to be any dead weeks for us, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree
So,
with you. Yeah, I think we're both pretty similar into what we think each team's going to be able to do.
yeah. All right. So before I wrap this thing up, something else I wasn't going to tell you about. I'm going to throw
Okay.
it on you, see what you think. Dude, what's going on with the Chicago Cubs?
Okay. So I think I think that they are finally starting to get some play out of their youngsters, right? Christopher
Yeah.
Morel has been good. The pitching has come together with, Marcus Stroman's hurt right now, but he's been good this season.
Yeah.
Look, Cody Bellinger,
Cody Bellinger's been out of his mind.
he's been out of this world, right? So it's going to be great to see Bellinger and Otani in pinstripes next year in Wrigley Field. It's going to be great when we re-sign both of those, or sign Otani, re-sign Bellinger.
Yeah.
At least that's the hope. That's the hope.
Now, well, I mean, it's Otani's going to go to the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers are going to re-sign Bellinger, right?
Well, they have
Bring
the
the
money to
MVP
sign
back.
everybody. So yes, it wouldn't surprise me if that happens. But you would hope that maybe Bellinger has a little bad taste in his mouth for how he left LA, and he's going to want to stay
Hopefully
where he
so.
kind of he's getting his payday because of how he played in Chicago. So I would hope that is
Yeah.
a reason for him to stick around. We still need some pop at the corners, right? Patrick Wisdom has not got it done. He can hit it out of the
Get
ballpark.
Candelario though at the trade deadline.
He has.
That was a good pickup.
It was. It'll be interesting to see if he remains. Dansby Swanson has been He's been one of the better free agent signings at shortstop when you compare him to Xander Bogaerts, Trey Turner. He has been actually better than them for the most part, which is pretty surprising. I wasn't really overwhelmed with that signing initially because I thought that the Atlanta offense was propping him up. Yeah, he's a gamer. He's a gamer. And I thought that the Atlanta offense was propping him up a little bit, but he's actually played really well. So I've been really pleased. So
Good.
so I think that they're gonna go ahead. Sorry.
Do you think they're going to hold on and win or make a run and take over this division?
I
Do you
do.
think they have enough?
Yeah, they have enough because I don't think the division's very good, right? The thing you worry about is the Brewers pitching, right? You've got Corbin Burns, you've got Brandon Woodruff, who's back now. Freddie Peralta, that's a pretty damn good 1-2-3. But the Brewers offense is nothing to really be afraid of, right? So it's who can get hot. And the Cubs, I Bleav they end the season at Milwaukee, final 3 games of the season. So that should be pretty interesting. I think the Reds have faded. They just got a lot of youth. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline. So I think they can. I do. At minimum, they're going to be. I think they'll be a wild card team. At minimum, I think they'll be a wild card team. Yep.
So your expectations are playoffs this year. Then.
My expectations are playoffs.
Yeah.
I won't be crushed because I did not expect them to even get to this point because I thought they were going to be sellers, midway through June. So I expect them to be a playoff team. It'll probably be out of the wild card just because I think the Brewers have a little bit too much pitching. But I think that it's safe to say that they're going to be. Hey, they took 2 out of 3 from your Braves, right? So they've got that in the under their hat.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes in the divisional round when we meet up. Then we'll be coming on here and doing special emergency pods just for the Braves Cubs divisional round games.
We've got I think there was a season that the Braves were the top seed and the divisional round they played the Cubs and Cubs won in 5. So there is precedent for the Cubs to be able to take out I think Kerry Wood even hit a home run that game 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you have really soured this show.
Hey.
Out of nowhere. I should have left the Cubs alone. They never do anything good for me. I don't know why I expected anything different this time around, but here I am. So, but no, I'm actually really happy for all of my Cubs fans. You and Ben, obviously, y'all do talk about them all the time because I'm like y'all, man. I didn't expect anything from y'all this year. So it's always fun to see those major league teams come out of nowhere and make a run. Maybe y'all can keep it up. Obviously, I'm not sweating anything as a Braves fan over here. We're the best team in baseball, best offense in baseball. So we're just trying to get to the postseason healthy. We need to get Ozzie back. Just put him on the injured list. So get that hamstring right, get him back to postseason. And for me, it's World Series or bust. And for y'all, it's making the postseason. But the Cubs are definitely on their way, though. They're definitely backed by money if they decide to spend it. That's always been y'all's thing, right?
The money,
whether or not you will spend it or not. So there's your little bit of baseball talk here to end the show on Dids in the Dugout. So staying on brand here, even if it was only for 5 or 10 minutes. But
you've always been a company man.
Yeah, that's right. So I'd like to really thank Chad for stopping by and
thanks for having me
and talking with me here. Hope to have him on several times more throughout the football season. And me and Hitch are going to be doing a gambling competition throughout the year. So not to put you on the spot or anything, but I'd like to bring you in on that too to see.
I've already lost.
Maybe you can. Yeah, well, you don't know that. It's a little early for that. So, but yeah, really happy for Chad to come spend some time with us here. Hope y'all really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll have Chad on in the not too distant future. Then when football finally gets kicked off. So, Chad, I appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely, Dids. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. Hi, Toddy.
Howdy, Toddy.